Today is Thursday, September the 26th, 2024. Welcome to episode 115 of Rural Reliance with the Canny Couple. If you're new to our channel, I'm Julia.
And I'm Aaron.
We're a small homestead family in Virginia that works every single day to merge homesteading and frugality. And what?
Well, I was going to say why we've changed that a little. A lot of people think we're from West Virginia, so it's actually, we're close to West Virginia, but it's the rural part of Southwest.
Yeah,
Virginia.
So we're Virginia. Southwest Virginia is what we call it. It's
and the way it rolls off our tongues, it does sound like West Virginia.
It does. So we just decided to help clarify and clear it up for everybody in confusion. Talking about homesteading, frugality, one of the big things that we are strongly for is for budgeting. I would say 95% of families out there need to be budgeting.
Yes, and the way today is especially, it's becoming more prevalent that important that you need to. It's the reality of today.
Yes. And most people look at a budget and they're like, okay, I've got my monthly expenses out. I know what I'm going to pay every single month. But we think you should take it a step further. You need to know what your bare bones budget is. And that's what this week's podcast is about. The importance of a bare bones budget. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about what it is, why you need it, why it's important, when you would need to have a bare bones budget. Because I will tell you, this is probably more important than your actual budget.
It is, because you sort of know what your month is in and out, but you know what you could make it on if you had to.
Absolutely. So important. So let's get started. Let's jump into it. Oh, you need to have this wrote down. You need to have this somewhere where you can access it.
Ours is up here on this other screen, actually.
It is. And I had written it down. We go through this every 6 months. We go through it periodically just to make sure our numbers are the same. And I will tell you, when I first came up with our bare bones budget, I was off. I was over by $40. Because I told Aaron, I said, here's what our bare bones budget is. And he's looked at me like I was crazy. Then we put it in, and I was over by $40. So it's actually less than.
Yeah.
So first, what is a bare bones budget?
It's your basic amount of income that's needed to basically live month to month.
Your necessities.
Nothing want wild.
Nothing want wild. Bare bones is what do we have to make it from one day to the next. A place to live, utilities, anything like that you need to make it day to day. Food.
Yeah.
I would even say clothing, for the majority of people, you can cut that back for a year or two.
Oh, yeah.
You can cut that back. Now, unless you're like one of those extreme minimalists, and I've seen this before, where you only have like one shirt and one pair of pants, you might need to have a little bit of a buffer in your clothing budget just in case.
Yep, that went my pair of pants this week. I guess I got to get another one.
Well, when I was getting my master's degree, there was a lady there that her family was extremely minimalist. Yeah. And she said, I've only got 3 shirts and 2 pairs of pants. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're living dangerously. Like, in my opinion, like, that's crazy. What happens if you for me, tearing a hole in a pair of pants is an everyday occurrence anymore. So it's just a little crazy. But yeah, I would leave out clothing. You can mend a lot. You can sew a lot of holes, especially if you're in a situation. But it's your bare necessities. This means no coffee. This means none of the fun stuff. No eating out. Your groceries are going to be as cheap as you could get them. Like, literally rice, beans, oatmeal, the basics. You're not going to be buying the $7 a pound meats.
Right.
Anything like that.
Right.
You're going to be focused on getting the very, very best deals, or the very basic ingredients.
Or eat lots of bologna.
It's not cheap anymore.
I know, that's the trouble.
It's not cheap anymore.
Right. I could live up bologna.
He could. God, he could. Rice is a really good one to have on hand. It's a great filler food. We like to have it on hand. It's not terribly unhealthy for you. Rice and beans. I mean, some of my little one is eating for 2 meals, and she loves them. Like,
Yeah.
she will eat her weight in rice and beans if I let her. She eats hers and mine. And it's just what she enjoys. So having foods that you know the foods that are cheaper that your family likes to eat. Don't just feed them super expensive foods and then try to switch them to cheaper foods if you have to. Make sure you do a good mix even in your monthly budget. So if you did have to pull a bare bones budget out, you wouldn't be in trouble.
Well, if nothing else, if you're making that big of a shift, your stomach might notice as well.
It might.
I mean, just saying that you might have a hard time adjusting to it
You
for
might.
a little bit.
Yeah, especially if you're eating really expensive foods. Because there are people out there, like, they're spending, I mean, they're buying the very, very best. And if you can afford it, great, go for it. We have a very bare bones budget for our grocery, what most people say anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And we can take that down even further if it's needed. So, why do you need a bare bones budget? Did you have anything else to add about what it is?
No, just that, think of it as your emergency budget. You can think of it that way, as something happens. If you needed to save money up for something one month, you could always switch over to your bare bones budget, for example.
Your bare bones budget is really the blueprint start to your actual budget. Mm-hmm. It's like your basic outline, and from here you can build on more. So maybe your bare bones grocery budget is $400, but your regular grocery budget is $800. Think of it that way. Yeah. It's really your outline. You're like, okay, but if I have to, I can cut it down. Like, if we go into a situation where, I'm laid off, we can go down to this. So that talks about why you need it. So job loss is one of the biggest reasons you need to have a bare bones budget. You need to know how far your emergency fund can take you, if you have an emergency fund.
And then that makes it even, you could change your budget even more if you don't have an emergency one, your bare bones budget.
Yep. It can really, like, how much cash you have on hand that you can make. How far can it go? Can it go a month? Can it go 2? Get to the numbers you feel comfortable with. Financial circumstance change. So we just had one. This year, we went from 1 income to 2.
You mean from 2 to 1?
2 to 1. Sorry, 2 to 1. I'm sorry.
I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
2 incomes to 1 income. Or if one person's retiring, or if you're both retiring and now your income stream is going to change. All these things matter. There could be any sort of change of financial circumstances. You need to have these numbers locked down before those changes happen. We went over the bare bones budget before we ever came to decision on this, because we needed to know what we had to have, what we could live off of. Mm-hmm. The bare basic level. The next one is an emergency situation. So say we have another lockdown, or anything like that.
Let's say medical emergency. You break your leg and you're out of work, for example.
For a short period of time, you're not laid off, but there is an emergency. You hurt yourself, you can't work.
Depending upon where you work, depends on if you have short-term disability or not, something like that.
Especially if you do it at home. You can also use it to generate fast cash. So say, this is probably one of the best ways to use your emergency bare bones budget. I need to save cash. We need to start building our emergency fund. Let's live off our bare bones budget for 1 month. 1 month. Practice it 1 month. And then see how it works.
A good rule of thumb there, you're probably going to be at least half of your budget, I would say, wouldn't you say?
We're on the different scale of this because we don't have a mortgage. We don't have car payments.
That's true.
So they're probably going to be maybe 3/4, I would say.
Yeah.
If you could cut down a fourth. So say your regular budget is $5,000 a month. And your bare bones budget is $4,000 a month. You could save $1,000 there. There's $1,000 you could automatically put in the bank. That's an emergency fund. Yep. You can start building that emergency fund so you have 1 month of bare bones, 2 months of bare bones, whatever that needs to be. I would tell you to try to cut that down a little bit more if you could, where you can, but I know that's not reasonable for everybody. I get that. We get that.
Yeah.
Like, we live in a different world because we're debt free.
Right. It helps.
It helps. It helps. It makes this so much easier. It really does.
It does.
It makes it crazy easier.
I mean, looking at our bare bone budget, I mean, we've got some, some just basic things, and some of these basic ones we might even be able to cut down even more on, we've said.
Yeah.
I guess we'll talk about that in a minute, right? What we sort of have.
We can. We'll talk about that after this. And then going off of this, it helps you find your comfort level on where you want to cut and where you don't. So say you go into bare bones budget mode to save some cash, quick cash. It's going to let you know what you can and cannot live without. And you might actually be able to make some deep cuts in your actual monthly budget.
That's true, because you might see, oh, well, I really didn't need my Netflix account. I cut it off this month doing that. Hey, I watched YouTube the whole time. I don't need to go back, something like that.
So many free options.
Yeah.
Pluto, YouTube, anything like that. Tubi, there's others. There's so many others. So you have a lot of different options. You actually might be able to cut your budget back. It's a really good way to test what your limits are. You might be able to say, well, yeah, making coffee at home, I'm actually able to cut out my, $50 a month Starbucks budget.
That's a good one right there. I mean, it's true, because you always hear the coffee talk.
You do.
I mean, you hear it on everything, any frugality thing you listen to. And just because...
It does matter. It does matter.
It's a lot of money when you get spending that much.
It does.
On coffee.
We look at it when we go to the grocery store, and we're ones we'll get a coffee occasionally. But
occasionally, it's been a while now.
It's been a while. It was March.
So here's a good example. So one of our local grocery stores has Starbucks inside them. Mm-hmm. My dad said all the old men were complaining.
Yeah.
That they can't go eat at the grocery store for breakfast anymore. And I was like, why? They still got breakfast. Because they can't sell their own coffee and they have to buy Starbucks coffee, which I think
like $3.
It was almost $3 for the cheapest one, is what one of them had said. So they don't go eat there for breakfast because they don't want to pay $3 for the coffee.
They're being frugal for them. Like they do.
Well, they probably eat out every morning, but
They do. They go. All the little old men gather at certain restaurants every single morning. You see the table, and they leave and come. It's fun. It's fun to watch. But it is very interesting how you could see that change. But people really think the small cuts don't matter, and they can really start to build up fast.
Yeah.
But it lets you find your comfort level on what you're willing to cut and what you're really not, especially like in your monthly budget. So for us, it's not hard to make cuts. We're willing to try cutting just about anything to see if it'll help save us. And we're willing to work towards goals. I have a great big goal this year of getting down to 2 freezers. This is a goal for me. I think I can do it. I've been working really hard.
You have.
To try to get us there.
So we want to turn off the Montgomery Ward freezer.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably going to save us $10 to $15 a month.
That doesn't seem like a lot of money. That's a lot of money, especially as our energy rates keep going higher and higher.
And it might help us save up to buy a replacement if we wanted to go that way instead of a Montgomery Ward freezer.
That was the newer.
That was the newer one. The Philco Ford was the older one.
That's the newer one. Another deep freeze. I like a chest freezer, just because they're easier to keep. I know that's a huge controversy out in our world. Nobody wants a chest freezer, but we are all about them. It's my favorite. So let's talk about what our budget looks like.
Yeah.
Our bare bones stuff.
So we have a few basic things, that like we talk about. We have our electric. We would try to cut down some more things on that. We might not run the AC units as long, or something like that. We would probably have them at a higher temperature, even to cut back even more there. Another thing is Right now, we head down internet and home phone. I mean, is that a necessity? Hmm. If I'm working, it is. And for you, for the eBay perspective,
Yes.
right now that is a necessity. It could switch to a want.
Well, we could drop the house phone.
We could drop the house phone.
That'd be about $40.
The only thing is, most of the time our cell phones don't get great signal.
They don't.
But that is an option.
Yeah, it'd be about $40. But right now we're leaving it in, and if we needed to make a deeper cut, we could. Another thing, grocery would come down $100. I know I could keep us fed well for $200. My goal is in another year to actually lower it from $300 to $250 to get to that $200 for us. It's just slow moving, and as we start processing our own meat birds and have chickens and ducks and turkeys, that will be easier for me to accomplish. Right now I have to have more in the budget for chicken because that's what we eat poultry.
Yeah.
And so we have to have a little bit more room in the budget for meat, and then I can start moving more towards even more basic ingredients.
Right. We cut gas about, it wasn't hardly a hive, but it was getting close to a hive. Just from the perspective of, we'd be traveling less. And depending upon if we needed to go to work or source stuff for her eBay, eBay side hustle, those type of things, we left some in there, like that could go down even further, but as a starting point, that's what we have.
Absolutely. Animal, cut that down. Right now we have a big buffer in there so we can build up animal feed. I like to be very heavy on feed. Coming into November, December, January, February, I like to make it so if we can't get out for 4 months, we're good on feed.
Right. So yeah, I mean, we cut animal in half.
We cut it in half. And we can do that. We can make that work. We can absolutely make that work because for the most part, that's what it averages. With the chickens, we're averaging a cost of $3 a week to feed. And they're laying way more eggs than that compared to the grocery store. Right. Found a clutch of eggs today, 10 of them.
Yep.
In a hole. So they're laying well over what we would actually have to pay.
We cut our miscellaneous in half. It could probably go lower. We're not for sure. It would have to be one we would practice with to see. But from that perspective, if we still need diapers, if we need,
household
item here or there, those type of things, is why we had that in there.
And we also have bought a lot of reusable things as well that we might not use every single day.
That we might switch more to.
That we might be switching more to. We went ahead and started this. I started this process in like 2021 of starting to have things on hand that were long-term purchases, not short-term purchases.
Right. Yeah. Homesteading. We had done $100 because some of the things we get from homesteading we put in that budget. Might be apples, might be canning lids, trees, seeds, those type of things that will sustain us. We did cut that in half.
We would just focus on the bare necessities at that point. There would be nothing fun, nothing like this would kill him. It would. He'd be like, this seems really interesting. And I'd be like, you're getting 2 types of squash.
Yep.
That's all we're getting. And butternut. That's it. Nothing else.
We did have our cell phones in the bare bones budget.
Yes.
However, we only did from the perspective of we pay yearly at a time. So we've sort of probably already paid for them, at a certain point. If we cut them off or not, to be determined when that date hits.
I don't know if we might lower yours.
We probably lower mine. That would save us $5 a month.
It would save us $5 a month. That might not seem like a lot, but when you're going bare bones, you're going scorched earth. But my cell phone bill is under $20.
Right.
So
yours is 17 a month.
17 a month, and Aaron's is 22 a month. That works out really well for us. So we have actually really, really enjoyed our service with Mint.
Yeah.
They're not a sponsor.
No. We just like them.
We just like them.
Yeah, just because it's so cheap.
It is. It's really reasonable. It's really easy to use.
And the one we left in there, it would be one that determines if you have a job, if you don't have a job type of one, is insurance and taxes. So, I mean, we have enough an emergency fund perspective.
See, we disagree on how this works.
We do.
We do so badly. But I told him this is part of the budget because we have to make sure it's covered.
But if you don't have that money coming in, we already have it built
It doesn't
up.
matter. We have it in. This is why you have it in the budget. This money isn't there. It is spent. It is gone. We have to put it there because that's what it's for. It's for the sinking fund for our insurance and taxes. Like, I know we have it. I know we can pay it. But I need it in the budget. It's got to be in the budget. It has to be. It adds...
You see how she's looking at it. The way I'm looking at it is we've put extra money into that sinking fund already that would cover us. Well, I know it's going to go up.
It's only going to go up. It ain't ever go back down. It's only going to go up. We always had a problem before we redid the house of this account not having enough padding. We always had that problem because the way our bills fell, they would all fall like one after the other.
Yeah, I think we had May, August, and then
November.
Oh, did they move it this time? Is it going to be October?
It might be October.
It might be October now. So, I mean, it sort of all hits right there, in a few months span.
So we've built it up, and I want to keep it built up. I want to keep it padded, and I don't want to lose that padding because I know this line item for us is not ever going to go down. It's only going to keep going up.
But from the perspective of if you don't have money coming in.
This is part of the bare bones budget.
See.
This is the biggest line item in our bare bones budget.
It is.
It's the biggest line item in our monthly budget.
I mean, honestly, it is. I was doing. It's basically a third of our budget.
Yeah.
Of our bare bones.
Yeah. That line item is a third of it. And we would be okay otherwise. We really would. We would be okay otherwise. And we could make deeper cuts. But to me, because it's something that we have to pay, we have to make sure it's covered. It has to be part of that. Period. Right. Every time.
So, as you notice, we didn't have a lot of things. We don't have gas bill. We don't have a water bill. All of that is because everything we use is electric, so that's why you do hear us, talk about our electric bill. It still might be higher than yours if you've got, gas and water, but for us, that all goes in that one category.
And we also don't have like sewer or trash pickup or anything like that.
Nothing like that.
We actually have to take our trash off. We could have somebody come pick it up, but for us,
that was a good side hustle somebody did in the county. So they do $25. I think it's a month.
Something like that.
What they did, and they'll come by and pick up your trash. I think it's once a week.
Something like that. Yep.
For $25 a month.
And like around here, you have to take it to the dump. Like, that's a good side hustle. That's really that's a really good one because, like, for us, Aaron just takes it when he leaves the house or when we go out. We just grab the trash. But a lot of people might not actually do that. It might actually be harder for them to set themselves up to actually do that.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about the essentials. So we talked about our essentials. Now we need to talk about others because we are different than most other people. We have very, very different essentials. So our first essential is going to be shelter. Shelter. If you do not have shelter, if you have to pay for what you are buying, then or where you're living, you need to make sure this is number one on your line item. If your rent is like $4,000 or even $2,000 a month, and you're having to go into a bare bones situation for an emergency. You've lost your job. Well, you might actually have to move. You might have to make that choice. You might have to make that hard decision. You might have to move. If you live in a really high cost of living area, we hate to be the ones to tell you not to live where you want to live, not to live near family. But sometimes it doesn't make sense for your financial future to live in a place that's super expensive to live if you're not making a really good salary to actually live there. To live a good quality of life. To live a life where you might actually get to be debt free.
Yeah.
Like if you're living in,
if 80% of your paycheck is going to your rent, for example, it's going to be hard.
It's hard as an understatement. That would be.
I mean, it's going to be hard to get down to a bare bones budget.
It's not even hard. Like you can't. Like if your rent's that high, can you imagine your food prices? No. And we have high food too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you would really have to scrounge. So you might have to make that hard decision. And we totally get it. You might have to take in roommates. You might have to do all kinds of different things. Yeah. It's for the reality of where we live today.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. It's hard. It's so hard. Food. We talked about food a little bit. Let's go a little bit deeper into it. So,
it's one of the necessities. Now, finding the amount that you can make it on, thankfully, where your home, you can make a lot of stuff from scratch ingredients.
That's helped. It's helped a lot. It's helped so much.
So, some people won't have that option, though, because they'll need more convenience ones because the way the day goes. So, your grocery budget might be more, but what can you cut back on? Let's say it's a frozen pizza, and you always like DiGiorno. Maybe now you go to the store brand.
And you get them on sale.
You get them on
sale. You don't buy anything that is not on sale. Right. No convenience items that are on sale. And this is one night a week, pizza night, Friday night, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's true.
You really have to have that lined up. But definitely have convenience items on hand. I would always say having a convenience item. Even we have chicken nuggets in our freezer. Mm-hmm. And I will always have chicken nuggets in my freezer until I get to the point that I can have homemade chicken nuggets in the freezer. Yep. I'm a ways from that. I am. But for the most part, I'm making the majority of the food that we eat.
Very true.
I mean, I would say, 90% of it? It's single ingredient. Most of it's not. Would you say 80?
I didn't know if it was closer to 95.
I don't think it's 95.
So okay. We'll go 90 then. If you ever notice,
he overestimates what I'm doing.
So I overestimate on everything but money.
He does, and then he underestimates.
And she overestimates on the money side of things, and then we switch.
Yep. Electricity, water, all of those things. Make sure you have that on. You should know your bills, and you also need to make cuts. Turn off your lights. Turn off your air conditioning units. Yep. Go to local libraries. Do all of those things.
Take showers at the gym.
If you have a gym.
A lot of places have, like community center gyms.
Yeah.
Go take one there.
If you're being per cost, mm-hmm. and you're exceeding your limit. Like I know a lot of people have limits. Yeah. We don't have that because we're on well water. For us, we don't have the cost for water is the electric bill.
Yeah. I know some people that said they would keep their like gym memberships, as like one of the really cheap ones just to take the showers, fill up on waters, stuff like that there so that they could keep their have a water.
If it's really expensive, that might be a very good option to help you cut back. If you're able to get one that's like super cheap, and I would say no more than $10, like at that point, right. Depending on where you live.
$10 to $20 would be max.
$20, yeah, absolutely. Gas for work. That's about it. Gas to the grocery store. You're gonna put these trips on top of each other.
You stop at the grocery store on the way back from work. That's what it is.
You don't even if you got mom at home, I'm a stay-at-home mom too. I understand sometimes we want to get out. But if you're in this kind of a situation, you got to make sacrifices. You got to make the hard decisions.
Right.
And staying home, you will save more money. Yeah. Delete Amazon. Delete anything that tempts you to make a purchase. I mean, everything else goes.
Yep. Yep.
Delete it all. Turn it off. Unplug it. It's gone. I mean, right. that's just the situation you're in at that point. That's what a bare bones budget is. You're not spending any money. And so we set a bare bones budget. Now, what do we do with it? Well, you have it on hand. And you review it periodically.
Especially like if gas goes up for the foreseeable future. Would be a good example. It's like if it goes up to $4 or $5 a gallon again, you're like, well, my bare bones gas budget ain't enough, if this continues.
Right. I'm not going to be able to do that.
So you would have to bring that up some more. Another good example might be your taxes go up. Well, you're going to have to increase that portion of your bare bones budget as well.
If you do a sinking fund for that, we would suggest you do.
It helps.
If you have to pay them, even like if you have car taxes or anything.
Because then it don't all hit at once because you're paying that monthly into a sinking fund and then just take it out of it to pay it.
I would think the biggest contribution I made to the budget was the sinking funds.
Probably so. It wasn't a concept I was familiar with of using at the time that way. I was one account, everything in and out of that account.
And when we started, it was hard. It was a hard adjustment for him. Mm-hmm. But he's really taken ownership and like he's really fallen in love with a sinking fund in the years that we've been doing it, because it does ease that pressure, because you've already spent that money. The money's gone out of your budget. Right. It's gone. It's not there anymore. It doesn't exist.
The only thing is, put it in an account that can earn a little bit of interest. That's extra that goes in there.
Yep, you do have that option. Mm-hmm. Aaron keeps up with those dollar amounts, so we know what is emergency fund, what is in the sinking fund, so we don't get anything mixed up.
Right.
But you need to review it. You need to review it at least annually. And if you are working to pay off debt, to really learn to budget, just to learn your budgeting skills, build your muscles in budgeting, I would really suggest you do this just as a way to build up cash.
Yep. Doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. You could do it once every 6 months. What is 1 month?
A lot of people talk about no spend months.
This is.
That's when you go to your bare bones budget.
That's what it is. Yeah. That's all a no spend month is. It's going bare bones. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. All you're doing is buying the necessities. Well, guess what a bare bones budget is? All you're doing is doing the necessities. It's the exact same thing. We're just calling it a budget.
Right.
Not a no spend month.
Right.
It will help you build up cash. You put that cash away. You can use it to pay off debt, to do anything. That might be somebody's credit card payment. That might be enough to pay off a credit card.
Yeah. Yeah.
In all reality.
That's very true.
And again, it helps you really figure that out. So if you take anything else from us from this week's episode, that would be the one thing I would say. Create it off of your budget. I would say it's like really the basic blueprint of what your budget looks like. And be realistic. Don't think you can go, if you're a family of 8, you can go down to $100 grocery budget if you're spending $2,000 a month. Like, be realistic. I think that's one of the things that causes people to fail at these things is when you're like, okay, I'm going to do a pantry talent and I'm not going to the grocery store. But oh God, I've got a 2-year-old and I need to get her milk. How am I going to get her milk? And then it just gets blown up in your face. I don't jump into anything full force like that. I'm able to adjust on the fly. It's like, okay, yeah, it didn't work that way. Okay, here's what we're going to do instead.
Right.
To make sense for what works for me and my family. And that's what you have to do here for yours. Our bare bones budget is going to be vastly different from a lot of people's bare bones budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's going to be extremely different because of our financial situation. And your bare bones budget is going to look drastically different from all the people around you as well because of your financial situation. So that's what you're looking to figure out and really use that to kind of help kickstart you off.
Yeah,
what about you?
Just think about this as, have it on hand for emergency times. You never know when they're going to hit. You might think they won't, but you never know. That's why you need to always have this prepared and on hand so that you can see, what you need to live from a month-to-month basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree.
Any other final thoughts for you?
No, I would just say, just start building it out. What has to be paid has to be paid. Make sure all that's included, because I know if you have debts that have to be paid, that's how you want to make sure you're paying those off as well. We didn't even talk about that. Debts are part of that as well, because if you have debt, you don't want to get behind.
Right.
We don't think about it because we're not in debt.
But you've got to make those minimum payments.
You do. It gets hard, and that's what I would go down to at that point. Now, if you're doing this as a test run, you can use that minimum payment now and then pay an extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 on your principal, depending on how much you could actually save. Yeah. You might be able to take it even further and say, I'm going to do a bare bones budget a year and get it all paid off.
Right. Very possible. Awesome. But if you've got any comments, questions, you can either leave those down below or send them to thecannycouple@yahoo.com. And make sure to go over and check out our link tree with all of our other content. And
as always, thank you for joining us on Rural Reliance with the Canny Couple, where we work hard, live simple, and enjoy life. Have a wonderful day.